Hey, I think we're live on the internet.
Oh, I was doing a
I mean,
selfie.
that's normally something that you would do.
It's 90% of everything
Well,
that I
let's see.
do.
Let's see if this is actually working. I'm waiting for the internet to catch up to us,
Yeah,
which may or may not be good. There we are. We're on the internet. So somehow, somehow we have gotten ourselves on the internet. It's probably going to be a little bit slow and mediocre right
fantastic.
now.
Heck,
I will hardline us in if we do this again next week. But I am 20 feet away. I'm very socially distanced from my router right now. Um, I can. John, is that better? I can. We have to pull our audio in from two separate applications. So we've gone the. This is the software route this week. I learned more about putting a show together virtually than I ever wanted to know. I really should put that shit on my LinkedIn. So I'll be out there looking for endorsements. All right, so Carrie, I have this mason
this is a
jar
fantastic
that
builder.
is from Honolulu. It's got an entire lime in my bubbly water. Apparently, I don't have you muted, but they're saying that now you might be. So hopefully you're. Can you guys hear Mickey? I think it was a. We're not sure. Are you?
Well,
Well, you seem to be there for me, and you seem to be broadcasting as far as I can see on the screen. Why don't you say something extended?
here, I be low. Right. Hello, welcome to not for very much longer. We assume. My name is Niki Turner. Turner ESQ on the Twitters. To my
lower left,
bottom,
right,
lower left.
Tom Bureau, aka Bougie Bully. We are unfortunately not at the Berliner pub, so neither of us are in downtown Renton. Ahead of the curve.
Fourth and Main.
Mickey is in. Where you're in? You're in the Way, right? I am.
Yes, I'm in the Federal Way, just south of Seattle.
Pioneer Square, which if you go outside, there are like 6 people, which is a little bit weird. One of the bars, I'm in a Facebook group, and one of the bars has said that they're actually opening tonight, and I'm not sure that's a great idea. So,
Yes.
after.
Doesn't sound like a legal idea.
I may step outside just to go see if they actually tried to open. Yes, there definitely is some lag, so much so hope that I have 2 windows with Mickey in it, and I have to look at one because that's the relatively real-time one, and then I have to like make sure it shows up in the other, which is super awesome. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's one word to describe it.
We will most likely be doing this next week if we have a show, and I will make sure we're hardline in, which will hopefully clear up a little bit of back and forth. So, unfortunately, not a ton of soccer stuff to talk about. I mean, we could talk about some leagues and some decisions, and we could talk about the fact that there's a whole lot of players, unfortunately, globally that have tested positive recently. Sounders have someone from the front office or support staff. I'm not exactly sure who it is.
As you can imagine, they have not disclosed that information, and
will for them. Yay HIPAA, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, we can just sort of dig in and sort of. Did you already finish that?
Well, again, I spilled half of it already, so.
Well, we were both prepared. I have
a disaster
my
in the making.
Sounders wine tumbler, of which I'm drinking a 2011 Chateau Saint Michel Syrah, which is lovely.
This may be like a 2007 White Claw, because I don't know how long it's been in the back of my fridge.
With Golazos still that are just like hanging out, and every once in a while you see someone break that out and post it on the gram. So that's a thing. That is a good thing we could talk about. We talk about streams. There's some goofiness on the internet. I've seen a whole lot of Connect 4 being played. In fact, I've seen it from different countries playing one another, or different clubs in different countries playing one another. So that's been pretty fun. If the goofiness is not going to subside, I'm probably okay with it, because somebody has to come up with some good internet content. At a minimum. So yeah, I think
houses for the next 3 months.
People
are going to need to figure out,
depending on where you are. I think here in Seattle, I'm hoping we don't end up with the lockdown situation, or the stay home, don't do anything that like San Francisco and a lot of the Bay Area has as of today. But you never know. I mean, maybe let's just kind of dive into a little bit of the stuff over the weekend. I live in downtown Seattle. I'm out and around. I've, again, tried to stay home a bit more than normal, but still trying to at least like stop into a couple restaurants and shops and things. And, especially with ones where friends of mine work, just to kind of try and support their business, even if you stop in and just grab a cup of coffee and sort of move on. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, in my opinion, were a lot of people in a lot of restaurants and bars. So, I did some grocery shopping Saturday and went and tried to support a place in the ID with a bunch of other ECS folks. It was not super, super crowded walking around there, but then yesterday went out on the east side and places that had 3, 4, 5 people in it, and then all of a sudden, half an hour later, there were 25 people in the restaurant, and you're like, ooh, maybe we should be done here and move on. And again, not that it was great to go out, but again, it wasn't full ban on doing anything. It's just pay attention and, try and not hang out in a room with 40, 50 people, which makes a lot of sense. And now we're talking about 10 people, which is a whole different discussion. But, I think it's one part people who just wanted to ignore the discussion, and one part people who were like, I'm just trying to support my friends and neighbors.
I don't give a
again, not that either of those are justifiable by any means. There's the reason that we're all on lockdown and all our restaurants are getting closed is because everybody went and did that this weekend. So it kind of is what it is, and we are where we are. I don't, at this point, I just don't know. And that press conference today was pretty serious. About them speculating that by the time this is quote all done in the United States might be July. That's a long way away.
Well, it's not one of those things where you can construct or get. So. On its own, and it's not how that typically. And even if we're given the social ramp up to the fact that America is getting people to agree to do things like that drastically change behavior is nigh impossible unless you get to where we are now, which is basically stay inside, or we're going to.
I honestly think we're going to get there. I just, Seattle's a different animal. You guys probably saw the tweet today from
we're going to start
Fort Lauderdale or wherever it was,
penalizing people
Florida, that
like they do in Italy.
1,000 people on the beach, just doing their thing. And again, it doesn't mean don't ever go to the beach, but like if you show up and there's 1,000 people there,
yes,
I don't know, maybe walk a quarter mile away, and like do your thing, or otherwise you're going to have these towns and cities that are getting locked down completely, which is not what anyone wants. Again, America, we all know, was going to have a challenge with any sort of concept of not doing things, irrelevant of what that was.
And it was funny
because it was almost better a week ago plus than it is now. It seemed like everybody really early on were like, hey, we're super good with this. And now everybody got super bored being at home.
My parents' bike today, and we got like you can turn it into a goal. So as the weather gets nicer and everyone is stuck within 50 yards of their house, at least we have some stuff to play with that gets you at least outside in the immediate vicinity. Again, we're not at the point where they're telling people you cannot go outside or you cannot go, to the park, for example. So there are still some things you can do as long as you abide by some of the social distancing rules. But yeah, I don't think we're not anywhere near the peak of this, and so until that point, it's just going to be one of those, or people are going to have to change their behavior and make adjustments until they find a point where the vaccine is ready to go, or they see the virus, the effects ebbing. So there's some people speculating that it might get better with the warmer temperatures. No one knows if that's actually accurate, but we'll see. And yeah, so we're gonna have to be imaginative with our entertainment choices since we don't have any soccer to watch.
That's a very constructive
or sports
way
for
of
that
putting
matter.
it. I'm going to stop touching my face here. But Hunch says, exercise and patience. People got to wait for stores to restock. Yeah, totally. I think it's like, don't panic when you go out and don't see something. I mean, I went to 3 stores yesterday, not in downtown Seattle, to find like toilet paper and paper products. And I took a picture of Target, and that entire aisle was just completely empty of everything, which was a little bit nuts.
Stuck in our houses for the next year. Reasonable for the time being. And yeah, just leave us a little something for everyone else.
For a single person, like a 6-pack of toilet paper will last you a fair amount of time. So.
Yes, I mean, unless you've got some digestive issues, and you could be looking at some other solutions.
So Hope asks, what's her favorite pandemic coping strategy? That's a great question. I have a large stack of books here, but I spent about 15 minutes earlier putting things on my Netflix and Hulu lists to watch. And I think right now it's still binge television, but I'm attempting to like walk away from the streaming and like read something, even if it's like a random recipe book for 20 minutes and just find stuff to eat. I would say that's probably my next one, is like, I'm going to make things that I haven't cooked before. So like that's going to be my next experiment.
Mine has mostly been reading and writing, which is what I do anyway. And so there's lots of stuff that was in the news last week, which I'm sure we'll talk about, with the women's national team and the lawsuits there. And with just news generally, with the Sounders and MLS and USL and NWSL, there's a lot of digging to do behind the scenes, so that takes up plenty of my time. Now, I don't know if we'll still be having a show at that point. Kind of behind the scenes stuff going on, and so I've got plenty on my plate at this point as well.
With the next CBA going through, which honestly we could discuss that for a second, because I don't understand how 500 something players didn't vote for that, like, which just seems silly. But like that went through, and there's a lot of just free agency stuff happening, and they're going to do their draft differently, and there's just interesting things. And I do expect you're going to get to a point where EPL or whomever decide like, we're just going to terminate the season or something, and we'll at least learn, are the windows going to open? Are they going to wait till July? Like, what's going to happen? So I expect us to have something to banter about come summertime. But yeah, for now, it's I think a lot of video games. Yeah, John's been playing a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2. Hunch Punch points out, take some classes, do some art, give yourself a challenge. I think that's been a good one. I've seen a lot of that where people are like, hey, how long can you plank for? Or like...
I did my first planking today since I can't go to the gym. It was not pleasant, I have to say. I did not
feel
enjoy
like a better person?
it particularly at all. I feel like a very sore person at the moment. We'll see how I feel in the morning. That might be a better question for a couple of days from now.
That's really funny. Wow, we've gotten lots of suggestions in the chat. The chat is lagging for me, so just all of you know, it's like it just jumped really far, and there's a whole bunch of messages. Dave has been D&Ding up the Twitters, if you haven't been looking at that. So that's a good suggestion from Dave Clark. There's a lot of, like the You Don't Know Jack, the online version. People are talking about playing that a bunch. Actually, our ECS Slack, there's some, like, how to have fun on the internet together channel that's just started, and people are talking about like games they can play online or sort of virtually, which is super fun. I think we're going to meet a whole new generation of Twitch streamers who thought that was not something they would ever do in their lives that are now going to start becoming Twitch streamers. So that's exciting. Carrie says to get a bidet. I mean, that's, you could practice being very European or Japanese. It's very, very good call. Wow, we got a lot. That's a good question, too. If you had to watch a rerun of a soccer game, any league, what would you watch? Jesse throws out 09 U.S. Open Cup final. Hunch Punch with the...
Ooh, that's a good one. The highlights of that one are still, on the YouTubes. I think U.S. Soccer has them. So, yeah, definitely a good one to watch. As they're concerned, it'd be nice to watch a full game because that was an incredible game. I remember that one.
A bunch of really fun matches to watch. I think at this point, I might actually go watch just a whole bunch of Sounders matches that I never actually did the TV rewatch that I traveled to, just because you were in the section and didn't actually get to see a lot of what happened. I think that would be fun. I think, John, you're right there. 2019 MLS Cup final. I've watched it a handful of times, but you also start to like focus exclusively on players here and there. And I'm like, I should just sit down and like relax and watch that by myself, because I think I've had a couple viewings with multiple people, and you sort of just what the ending is already. So somebody actually posted 100 soccer documentaries. That was, I think it was a Reddit thread or something like that, like some really cool things that are out there. That's pretty good. I would say, wow, Sounders versus Columbus is running all day today. That's really funny. I think there's some
is it really?
Stuff out there. I might actually finally watch that Zlatan documentary that's on, I think it's still on Netflix. I started watching it like 5 times, and I get like 15 minutes in, and then I just can't handle it anymore and move on. So might come back to that. Carrie says that some of us are learning how much more they love their jobs when they get to work from home. So that's a thing. I could totally see that being reality for a lot of people.
The good thing about being on this late is that things get filed by people late in the evening so as to avoid the news.
So it's already in your inbox.
And such a thing is going to be coming out here shortly from...
Nice.
I may have gotten a copy of it. And sorry to be cryptic, I've been embargoed until 11:15.
I was going to say, so 15 minutes from now. Got it.
No, I think in the next 15 minutes, so Eastern time. Yeah, 15.
Yep.
You may recall that there was a bit of a brouhaha with a filing that had some... let's just say that there is about to be a filing which modifies some of that language. And so that should be very interesting. Obviously, I can't really read it right now while we're streaming, but
well, I guess we do.
I
Have
got a bit
news
of a
in that
summary.
area.
But like I
There's a
said, I can't really say
certain
anything
U.S.
here for
soccer
the.
executive who no longer has the job that they had when we had a show last week. That there's a lot of. It's really funny. Basically, anything newsworthy last week that happened was like a "this escalated quickly" situation, because it was like that
Escalated
that went
quickly and to
on,
hold
and
my
everyone's
beer
like,
at the
"Oh,
same time.
this is interesting. Well, that's terrible." And then it was like, "I resign," and then it was EPL. They're like, "We're definitely going to have matches this week," and then 1 hour later, Mikel Arteta is like, "I tested positive." And it just kept going and going. But the hold my beer is the right call.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we'll have to wait, 15 minutes here and go from there. But we could make a guess. I am, by the way. I can point the camera down a little bit.
Yeah.
I think you can see it here. I did get the Breaking Tees shirt of the Inside Out women's national team warm-up jerseys from a week or so ago, where you could just see the stars and that's it, which is pretty cool. So good for them. I did not need to spend that money, but I had to do it. It was like the the election shirt that we've all seen and purchased. I just had to get in. You never know how long those things are going to hang around for. Nicholas is getting the hoodie, so good call. Big fan. Total errata. Kristen, who I'm guessing is not at the Berliner unless she went and got takeout and they're open. I'm unsure if they actually were. She wants to know if she could reply to all the olds, her words, not mine, that she knows, and tell them that the baby shower 3 weeks from now isn't going to happen. She.
Right now, supposed to get married in June, but having a grand ceremony like they were planning, probably off the menu at this point. And so that's in jeopardy, to say the least. So that really sucks for them, and it's just kind of one of those things you just can't really plan for, unfortunately.
Well, it is a bummer, and there's a couple of folks, kind of in SonarFeed land or Sounders land that have weddings coming up. At least one of which is a trip over to the Midwest, which is a bummer. So it's funny. Someone had joked today that they were going to have a significant amount of Alaska Airlines credit in their account. So good times. Good question. Hope Sounder Heart's soliciting ideas for what they should do during the break. What do you want to see them do? I think I want to see like a rankings, like a all-time Sounders top 20, or just like, what about like take 5 questions and ask just a ton of current and former Sounders questions, like the same random 5 questions. And it could be like pizza related. It could be soccer related. Like just, I don't know, kind of errata. Like this is like that 2-week period between the Super Bowl where you get to the media day. Yeah, and people are like, so what
the
did
stories
you have
get a
for
little
breakfast this
absurd.
morning? And Tom Brady's like, I don't eat breakfast. And then spends 20 minutes talking about how lunch is more important to him or something. I don't know. I think there's a couple of fun ideas. That's a great question. I have not been checking in on Sounder at Heart as much as I normally would because I'm just trying to do other things. But people A need to work and people B are super bored. So there's a really good time now to create some fresh content.
There's room for content. There's room for the content. Yeah, I actually had an idea coming into the season to rank all of the Sounders seasons just from best to worst, and just kind of go through a little summary of etc., and then rank the best. Obviously, that would stand out like 2016. The crashing out to the people down south, and the having Clint Dempsey and Oba and Eddie Johnson and managing to barely not implode. So I think that'd be an interesting one just to kind of go through all the seasons and see what people thought about how the Sounders kind of have progressed through their history.
And it's a fun one because you could really break it down if you wanted to, or you could have a poll and
you do one a week or something like that.
That's
one or two.
The same way that like the player rankings versus Relio, like just to see how people broke it down and like what the overlap was. I think that could be a lot of fun. My instinct is, and maybe this leads into the questions that just kind of flew in here. I don't think we're seeing soccer till end of April, maybe May at this point, at like the earliest.
Okay, so all right, so I actually had a call and some news that will be coming out tomorrow. Is I'm not sure how much I can say about this, but one of our professional leagues will be announcing tomorrow that they're abiding by the CDC requirements or recommendations, which prohibit any large gatherings over 50 people for the next 8 weeks. And so that would what's today, the 16th? So that's May
MLB was doing that
17th.
So you
before they would even consider coming
but
back.
I've seen that in a couple of places that they're talking about May, like without even thinking about it.
Yeah, one of our leagues is going to announce that tomorrow, and so that means again they won't be. Maybe they ramp up 2 weeks before then, and so they're ready to start, say, May 15th, or I don't know if that means that they wouldn't be back until June, but that is happening tomorrow, and I would expect all of the leagues. And guidelines, and so that
I could see that happening, though. I mean, that's very prohibition. If anybody's ever paid attention to that it was like breweries sort of knew it was coming, and they were like, "Okay, let's make some beer." And there was, I forget who it was actually, but like showed up like at the White House or something, like with their cart of beers all ready to go, kind of the day that the proclamation was signed, which is interesting.
Be able.
It's you've been in and out. You've been a little choppy for me. I just reduced a couple of things to try and like cut down a little bit of CPU, so hopefully that helps.
If not, I'll just get rid of the USB microphone and just use the computer.
We had seen that USL teams had said, well, at least earlier, that they're not participating. Right. I mean, that would destroy.
That's not 100% accurate, but you can. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that all of the leagues are going to prioritize their.
Yeah.
So I'm sure play the Open Cup.
Well, and I don't think there's enough other teams in other leagues, if USL decided to sit it out, that would, pony up the dollars and participate in order to get slain by the MLS teams
have play
that show up. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really big bummer because it's been a long time since.
I,
I mean, last
I
year, like
don't
again, losing to
know
Portland
what other
always
options
sucks,
they as
but
far as concerned.
at least that was not the end of the world, as previous seasons had been. It was a solid game. We got to play in a new venue for Sounders, but to I've sort of joked with people. Yeah.
Hey, can I butt in here real quick? So that embargo that I was talking about has been lifted. So just to let people know what's going on, the Federation has filed an amended brief, which removes all of the offensive language or what was perceived to be offensive language from their filings last week that resulted in Carlos Cordero being fired. Let me just Cindy Cohn, who's the new president, has a statement calling the filing an error. And a fundamental breakdown in their internal process, which led to the offensive assertions made by the Federation, which don't represent their core values. They're taking some steps to address the issue, which includes filing the amended brief, which got rid of the offensive language. And they're transitioning to a new law firm. That was all reported already. And then they're going to do a comprehensive review of their internal process to do better. And they're still hopeful they can find a positive resolution, and they look forward to working with be better in the future. So that is where they are, and they are still claiming that the Federation has paid more to the women than they have to the men over the last 5 years, when you include everything that they've paid, which can
Well, the
USL
women have played
salaries
a
and
couple more games, and by a
all
couple I mean
such
a lot
things.
more
So
games. So
yeah, yeah. So that is, I won't get into the merits of their argument here because I haven't had a chance to read it. But very interesting stuff with respect to that trial, and we'll see. This is obviously more of a PR cleanup than a legal cleanup,
right.
because the arguments essentially stay the same, even if they remove some offensive language. They're still arguing the essential fact that they pay the women more than the men, and that there are certain, while their pay structures may not be equal, they are equitable. And so all of that stuff is still set to go to trial. And so, yeah, so that's kind of where we are. But I just thought it was interesting that, given what happened last week, and which kind of went to DEFCON 5 and resulted in Cordero losing his job. Interesting that they're removing that language. And I was talking with some people who also follow this case, some fellow attorneys, and all of them agree that those arguments about the women being not as fast and or strong, and that being a basis not to pay them, was just terrible lawyering, and no reason to put that kind of stuff in your brief. And there were much stronger arguments for them to make, such as paying them more,
Did
whether
no
you
one
agree with it or not. It's a stronger argument than
US
saying
Soccer
women
read
are
it?
weak
Did they
and
just
pay them
go
less.
hand some stuff to their attorneys and let the attorneys do whatever they want? I
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, it's no one's expecting a client, which is the
for sure.
Federation in this case, and the board, to go through and read 2,600 pages worth of documents and understand a summary judgment motion. But they understood what the strategy was. So even if they weren't, aware of every single T that was crossed and citation, they still understood kind of where they were going with the argument, because those are the arguments they've been making essentially the entire time. Maybe not as charged as it was in those filings, but they were still making those arguments. So, putting that aside, Cordero took the fall, and probably rightly should have. He's the president, even if the president isn't a particularly strong figure in the Federation, but basically who are powerful and do make all the decisions, if they didn't understood what the strategy was. And if someone had a problem with that, they should have decided to have it rewritten, have this offensive stuff or whatever concern them taken out, and they didn't. And it was only after the fact that they came back. So better that they did it now, but it doesn't really change the legal arguments in the case because those arguments are likely by and large the same. And so we still have a trial on May 5th that may or may not be continued based on the end of the world coming to us. But right now you still got a trial set. But I've been talking to some people again, and my thought is that they will not settle the case before they go to the summary judgment and have that heard, which is at the end of this month. Again, depending on conditions on the ground, because I think both sides will want to see if they can win the case outright without having to go to trial. And so the judge may, he or she, I can't remember if it's a guy or girl, but the judge may say to try to get them to settle, maybe and give neither side what they want, and say, you guys better come together or you're not going to like what I do, either one of you. And if the judge finds that one of the arguments is just so compelling that they have to rule that way, then that's another thing. But
how many hours,
we'll see what happens,
minutes or seconds until one of the women's national team players tweets something like, "Ooh, you removed the words."
Yeah.
And is it going to be Hope Solo?
Yeah. Well, she's not a part of those lawsuits.
But she has
directly,
she has been commenting on the subject. So.
Yeah. So yeah, I would lay 2-to-1 odds that Hope is the first one to have some commentary on this. I'll be interested. The women's national team, they've obviously been not shy about sharing their opinions, which has been entertaining for us. But at some point, usually attorneys will try to rein in their clients so they don't say something stupid. The women have been pretty good about that, but you just never know. You don't want someone to say something or do something that gets used against you in court down the line. So again, I appreciate this step, or just think it's just the federation just trying to clean up the mess they made is to be determined. We'll have to watch Twitter for that.
Well, good breaking news. Thanks for that. I think, Holly, that probably answers your question about how did that document get out in the first place. Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about thousands and thousands of pages, that doesn't necessarily, I mean, that means that someone may have done a poor job summarizing and what went to the client in the first place, or that the clients were just lackadaisical and had some brute force conversations with their attorneys and wanted to force it in. And I think I had posted on Twitter. Sorry,
it's the federation. They have a history of writing snarky and or catty pleadings. And to be fair, the federation, to my knowledge, has never lost a lawsuit in modern times. They've always prevailed. So that probably breeds a bit of confidence, maybe arrogance. And so maybe they thought that going with both guns blazing wouldn't get the reaction that it got. I did hear that Cordero was, I think, blindsided was the word that was used by the backlash, which maybe speaks to the insular nature of the Federation board.
That's a little bit baffling to me at the end of the day. It's really interesting. I had posted, I think, on Twitter about it, that if you ever pay attention to arbitration cases in baseball, they are brutal. Teams go at their players, and it's
yes,
guy hits 40 home runs for his first 2-3 seasons for the Yankees, and they're at this, they're in front of the arbitrator, and they're like, well, he didn't hit 41 home runs. And you're like, seriously? And then it's like Mickey Mantle hit more home runs when he was 19 years old. And they're literally insulting people. And it's just it's just crazy to me.
It's not very nice.
It just seems really, really counterintuitive, let alone counterproductive. And, maybe 20, 30 years ago, you could get away with this on the regular. But nowadays, everything's public. And everyone has their own, microphone, let alone soapbox. Soapbox is decades ago. We've all got mega microphones. Again, the two of us talk on the internet about whatever we want once a week, and people show up at a bar for it. So if you're Megan Rapinoe and you were to do something at that scale, what does that look like? It's interesting.
It's interesting that they decided to file this amended pleading because, again, it doesn't really change anything about the arguments in the case. It's strictly it is strictly a PR exercise to try to clean up the mess they made. And I don't even know if it's really going to make any particular difference because the damage is already done. This went nuclear last week. This was all people were talking about, aside from the, coronavirus, at least in the sports realm prior to everything being canceled. This was just, it was everywhere. So, you file this, there's other things going on right now. So to the extent it helps, helps them in the PR battle is probably a good thing. And I guess it should be said that that's what they need to clean up at this point is their image, because I tweeted last week that they basically have destroyed their relationship with the women's national team based on what they filed last week. And so that, that's why Cordero had to go because, again, someone had to take the fall. So I'm not sure what this will do to resolve, whatever bad blood there is.
Well, it's just like, again,
but
they
I suppose it's a step they had to take.
T-shirts. Like, I can't think of a time, honestly, where a team of that stature has done something as public. Like, if an NFL team did something like that in warm-ups, the players would be suspended and fined tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. The NBA fines people for, like, writing stuff they didn't endorse on their sneakers. So that was a pretty big move.
Well, yeah. Well, the women are clearly the most important and popular, women's organization as far as sports are concerned. Certainly, in the federation's orbit, and maybe generally. So they once they came up with that step, you knew that Cordero was gone. He was gone probably before that, but that just basically cemented it because again. I think that bridge had been burned, and there was just
stuff on Twitter, and they're like, "I gotta go close my office door." Like, I don't even want to know what's happening outside right now. I don't know. I mean, it's in a weird way. Unfortunately, like that gave us some stuff to pay attention to for about a week.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering now, though, like if, given the fact that everybody's borderline quarantined in their own homes, that the internet battle kind of steps up yet again. I think see this about everything right now. People are like, I'm super bored. I'm gonna tweet about everything.
There's now going to be a little vacuum before the summary judgment motion as far as the women are concerned, and there is no soccer that's going to be happening anywhere except for Turkey and Australia, essentially. I'm not sure. I don't want to say because I just don't know. But that aside, you've got 6 or 7 countries maybe that are still playing right now. So there's a massive vacuum in the world of sports generally and soccer in particular. This is something that will absolutely fill the void.
Let's maybe talk a little bit round robin because, again, we don't have a lot of Sounder stuff except, what Jordan Morris content do we want to see on the internet, which is definitely always a thing. Like, that's whether there are 10 Sounders games or 0 Sounders games. That's a pretty popular thing. The Liga MX thing this weekend really threw me for a loop. And aside from the, deleted tweet from the, health organization with, this isn't a big deal, nothing to see here, it went from, we're all playing to we're all playing and we're going to finish the weekend off. No one will be in the stadium. And then Saturday night, I guess it was, I think the Chivas match, they opened up their broadcast, which was actually really neat. They went from it being on 1 or 2 networks to CBS and a whole bunch of other people because the networks are please give us a live sporting event.
Exact content, yes.
But I have to say, and you saw a lot of quotes from players and coaches and former players and whatnot, and people who've played in empty houses because of, rules violations or whatever it is that's gone on. It was really strange to watch. Atlas was on yesterday and Cruz Azul, and that's turned into a meme in itself. Them having a pretty good position in the table as of right now, but it was really all very surreal. To watch those games get played. And I thought they'd get through Saturday and then go, you know what, we're going to postpone Sunday. and then they didn't.
No. Well, I think Liga MX has a fairly lucrative contract, a TV deal. I mean, I think various TV stations own some of the teams, so it's a very convoluted system. So it's understandable that, especially with it being the only game in town as far as soccer and sports generally was concerned, that they would love to get those games in. But they do. You just can't play a season, or at least a substantial part of the season, with all your games behind closed doors. That's just financially prohibitive. If you got no attendance revenue coming in, no your merchandise sales, concessions, parking, and then you're flying a bunch of players all the way around, which is at least probably 30 players if you include support staff and coaches and such. No matter how you're flying them around, you're just flying them around and not making any money. And you're just spending money. And whatever TV deal you've got, unless you're like an EPL size television deal, you're losing money playing
that's
those
like,
games.
unless you're the
and
Chivas and Club America and maybe 4 of their teams, maybe 5, can afford can afford
and
to do this for an extended period of time. There are some of these teams, they've paid off their grounds, they are named after the company that sponsors them, whatever it is, that they're probably not going anywhere. But I've already read a couple things where they said there will be they don't think an Ascenso team is going to be able to even buy their way up. That they're like, I don't know if we're going to even have a full complement of teams for the next season based on where they are right now, which is just crazy. And
that's one of the underreported things about Liga MX is that their second division is in far worse shape than ours is, and ours, being the USL, they're working on thin margins as far as their operations are concerned. But the Mexican second division, which is they're talking about stopping promotion and relegation for the next 5 years, and I'm sure that's going to happen now, if it wasn't before. And you just don't have there's not the depth of second division teams to support that, and that's why you get teams that are supposed to be relegated out of the first division just buying their way back in or paying a fine essentially
again,
to stay in the first division.
If you understand how their pro rel works, it's actually exhausting to look into, and then you have it's so much. I was
told there would be no math involved in this course.
It's really funny. There's it's not ratio, but it's essentially if you've played more games over a certain period of time, you can actually be lower in the pro rel than teams that have a worse record than you because they only recently got promoted, so they're in.
Drastically improves their relegation number, whereas teams that have been there forever have a difficult time really moving up unless they have a really fantastic season.
Years ago at this point, that Querétaro got relegated, and then the owners bought Jaguares and just changed their name to the Gallos, and then they had gotten promoted, or they were already up in the league, and they just became that other team that now got relegated. So it was literally if Sounders got relegated to USL and Sacramento got brought up, and Adrian bought Sacramento, called them Sounders, and just had them move to Seattle. That's literally a thing that you can do.
Yeah. And that's actually illegal. That's illegal in FIFA. You can't. They changed that rule, or they changed that policy back in 2009 because there was a Spanish team did the same thing.
I would say it's going to be really interesting to see leagues or a pyramid where they're just not going to have pro rel, and they've had pro rel for a while. It's going to be interesting, and it's going to just change the money aspect of it. And I would say it's funny if you haven't watched, and we've talked about this on the show before, Club de Cuervos, that's on Netflix. The hokey shit that you see done by ownership and broadcasters and other stuff is actually probably real. And if you ever watch comedies and then you meet people Silicon Valley, the first few seasons of Silicon Valley, I had friends from startup companies in 08, 09, 10 that actually were consulting producers that were sharing anecdotes of dumb shit that happened in meetings. and they figured out how to make that dumb shit into storylines for Silicon Valley, which is one of the more hokey things in the last 10 years on television. So it's just gonna be really interesting, and maybe this is a good kind of bridge to other absurdity that's gone on, which is the rumor of the MLS Liga MX Super 50 team league with no pro rel and just like some mind numbing amount of conferences and travel, which again, you're shaking your head the same way I did when I read it. But I have to tell you, if there was ever a time to speculate wildly on things that would be both super fun, because it would mean fun travel to games, also super terrible, this is it.
I mean,
Fun
what do you say
internet
about something
content.
like this? It's nonsense. At least it's without the promotion relegation aspect, which you think they could probably just do quite
But go to
easily.
60
With
and
50
get 3
teams, you
tiers. Like,
go
it's
third.
perfect.
Yeah, yeah. There's stuff that you could do there, especially because the theory under which this works is that you've combined MLS and Liga MX, and you get a massive TV
Which
deal.
isn't a bad idea.
That MLS in particular, yeah, which is the thing that MLS has craved and never had. And so if they're getting I don't know, $800 million a year or something like that, then that is something. And then Liga MX comes in and the total deal is worth over $1 billion a year, let's say. Then that is something where you can have the 3 tiers or 2 tiers at least, and then you can parachute payments down to make sure teams don't go away. You presumably are able to, because you've got a mix of Mexican and MLS teams in both divisions or 3 divisions, however you want to put it. Teaming up and going down, but that makes no sense in the scheme of no promotion relegation. There's what's the point? Are you just regionalizing
It doesn't make sense to do it. Yeah.
the leagues? At which
But this
point,
is where, like, again, let's
you might as
just
well
go
just
get
keep
the
them
Canadian
where they are.
Premier League
And
MLS and Liga MX and just have like the NAFTA League and weird. Where
the
did
North
that name
American
come
Soccer
from?
League, maybe. It's up here. Someone may have used it in the past. I'm not sure though.
I don't know. I laughed when I saw that, and then I was like, someone's gonna run with this because they don't have anything else to do right now.
Yeah, it's nonsense. But maybe something happens around 2026 or so. But again, without the pro rel, it makes no sense to me whatsoever, because there's just, you can't, a 50 team league is, you're not going to play every team. Yes, you're not going to play every team, and even if you're dividing conferences up, regionally, then again, it makes no sense. And if they are not closing off the divisions at that point, as far as like having a first and second division, because again, you can't have, I don't know, Santos Laguna stuck in the second division, or Portland, for example, stuck in the second division. That's just not going to work.
Put
So
San Jose in the second division. I would be super okay with that.
Yeah, yeah. It makes no sense. Again, you're right. It's a content generator, but it just gives me a headache.
Like,
even
that
wanting
came
to
out,
talk
and I was
about.
like, oh, is this Nutmeg News? No, it isn't.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nutmeg News, they're probably going to lose their shit with just like insane content in the next couple of months. Because it was like today, they tweeted, they were like, U.S. soccer, MLS soccer, Twitter has devolved into blocked accounts subtweeting, or slowly devolved into blocked accounts slowly subtweeting one another. And Dave's like, slowly?
Yeah, sounds it sounds about right.
Pretty accurate.
Sounds about right.
So I can only imagine we will have more and more and more of this. What I am fearful of is we're going to have situations like, was it Valencia, that has a pretty significant number of players who have reportedly tested positive. So I think we're only going to see more and more of this. I mean,
it's a bit surprising that there hasn't been an MLS player that's been diagnosed it's only, as far as I can tell, the Sounders support staff member is the only person associated with MLS in any meaningful capacity, which is someone who would have interaction with the players.
And yet no one's getting tested. So maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, that's part of it too. As far as I know, none of the Sounders players have been tested because none of them have presented with any symptoms as of yet.
Elba comes out and he's like, "Oh, I'm positive and I had no symptoms." Like, that's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, that's that you raise an excellent point, and that it's got it and they just locked out. I would expect that you're going to not the Sounders necessarily, but you're going to expect you're going to see more support start to test it, and Jeff Ruder from the league call is going to be going as far as point. I think we should get something from the Sounders, an update from the Sounders here in the next couple of days too. Just kind of giving everyone just kind of a status report on where things stand.
Have you heard about players either getting together with one or two others and kind of doing anything on their own? Not necessarily Sounders, just like MLS players or anybody else. Yeah.
As far as like training is concerned?
Right. Give it a couple days kind of thing.
Happening now at this point. But there was some training going on. I don't think that's happening now. Happens before the end of the month, as far as workouts or training at minimum.
So since we don't have anything serious to talk about, we'll bridge over to random internet content. Have you watched Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's TikTok? Like, I'm going to go up the steps. Have you watched this?
I have not. And how's my microphone now? Because I keep getting people telling me cutting out.
It may be better. It may be a data thing. I can't really tell. You sound fine to me.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Someone in the chat can give us an answer. No, I didn't see the Oxlade-Chamberlain.
So go do that. If those of you in the chat haven't watched it, it's well worth watching. There's an outtake. It needs to be longer because I guarantee they messed up more than one time. But if we were to predict which Sounders player will have the best TikTok account, who would we think it was?
Oof. Well, probably Rui Diaz. That would be my just off the top guess, because he seems to have the biggest social media following, and the most contributions and what have you. So that'd be my guess. What do you think?
Who is a good answer? Hope. I'm trying to think of who I could see just being surprisingly interesting on TikTok. Of all players recently, I have to tell you, I could see Brad Evans doing the switch, the flip the switch thing. Will Bruin, I could see doing stuff like that. I don't know, current players. Current players.
Nuhu's a good shout. I like Nuhu.
It would be somebody really random, and it's going to be Alex. And then I'm just going to be angry online about it, because he's going to be doing every dance that's possible on the internet. Speaking of which, by the way, somebody tweeted yesterday, they were like, if we keep going with having to be stuck in our houses, we're all going to be hot fire on the internet with all the meme dances that are out there. And everyone's just going to be like doing them on the street once we all get to leave our houses and go do whatever.
I was about to say, we're going to be able to leave our
means.
houses. That's good news.
I'm actually going to do it immediately after the show. I'm going to go outside. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We should ask this at a press conference. Speaking of which, will Sounders, like, if they do some sort of kind of presser, will it be like Skype chat, or are they going to, like, do you have any idea of what that'll look like?
Oh, it'll 100% be a teleconference. And
so we're not
as I said, you should expect one this week.
Random
at some point.
Video of like Schmetzer in his home office.
Well, remember the business meeting where they looked like they were being held in a hostage room. I think they're going to try to hold off on any video if at all possible. Yeah, it'll just be a teleconference. They've done that in the past, and it's pretty easy enough. So, yeah, it'll be good to get an update on where things stand, even if there's not much to say. It's like one of those things where we'll get this update, and then they're probably going to go dark essentially for the next several weeks, because again, assuming that they go with the CDC guidelines, that's 8 weeks of nothing, and there's nothing they can do. And I'm sure MLS is going to have a protocol that they're going to announce as far as training is concerned. And again, that's not going to happen for another month, let's say. And so, between now and mid-April, there just won't be anything. I mean, I should say there are a couple of interesting questions to ask about, paying salaries for workers. I know some teams have announced that they're going to handle that, but how long are they going to do that for? To what extent are they going to do that for? That's a question I asked the Sounders about. We should be getting an answer from them on that. There's also CBA has not been finished yet, and so who knows how this affects things. So that hasn't been ratified, and there's probably some changes that are going to have to be made, and how are they going to handle the players' contracts if they don't have new?
I think
at least for a while.
I really hope that it gets to the point during those press conferences that people start asking just really random errata questions, like asking if people are taking the conference call from bed, or like, what beer they're drinking at that very moment.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like the alcohol rules should be relaxed.
Players are going to be like, wait, how long does marijuana stay in my system? I live in Seattle. By the way, that's one of my favorite things to pay attention on the internet to, which is like, are the marijuana shops open, and like, have they had their hours cut in Seattle? Like, the answer is it depends.
What's the answer to that?
So what was the question here? Hope, if you got to write a long form profile of any Sounders players, who would you write it about? I'm going to say of current players, I would pick Joao Paulo, just because it would be new information.
Go ahead. Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's a good one. I've toyed with maybe like a coming of age piece with Morris and Roldan, because just kind of chronicling their start with the team to where they are now. I think that'd be pretty interesting. Just seeing kind of how they've now Morris especially grew up obviously around the Sounders, except for his time at school, and Roldan came in having been in school around here. So I think a coming of age piece would be kind of interesting, just kind of chronicling their growth as players and people over the last 5 years now?
Crazy,
4 to 5 years.
Years.
Yeah. Yeah. 2015. Nuts. And he's only like 25, 24 now. So yeah. So that'd be the one I'd like to pitch at some point.
That's a good. We should post that on the Twitters. Thanks, Hope, for creating good Twitter content for us. Wow, I don't even know where to go to from here. I wish we had more random things to chat on, but
well, again, this is where the new off season that we're in is biting us in the ass. There's just not a lot to talk about. There's a couple of really big stories, but you can only talk about that stuff for so long before you're kind of just repeating yourself.
The Dallas FC Twitter is there, as far as I know. Did I miss something else other than
my understanding, or at least the behind the scenes rumors? And I don't have any inside information on this, but it's I think someone changed their setting to being under 13, which basically blocked them being able to post on Twitter or something along those lines, because obviously being under 13 you can't be on the Twitter. So I think that's my understanding as to what happened, but I do not know that for sure. But it makes
that would be the
easiest
switch flip. That it kind of moving on from that the streaming deal. JJ, you had asked that earlier. I had heard. I know again, people have heard it from Jeremiah, who's mentioned it at YachtCon, I think, and maybe at other places. I've heard Amazon 5 ways to Sunday that it's coming in one way, shape, or form. And for those of you that don't necessarily pay attention to this, EPL teams or some of the matches for EPL were streamed exclusively on Amazon a month or two ago. And it was actually like a pretty big uproar over there because they have very, very restrictive rights. Frankly, like the NFL level rights, but it's not even blackout. It's like you have to go to the pub or you go to the game or you pay like $10 a match to watch stuff. It's very prohibitive. And
it's crazy.
Again, different culture, different place. I've very much heard that it's Amazon from people who don't care about Sounders. So I'll be shocked if that isn't what comes of it. But frankly, Amazon's got other things to deal with and worry about these days.
Yes, like make sure my delivery gets there on time tomorrow.
You should write an op-ed in the Washington Post.
100%. Yeah. I would say that your hunch is accurate. The benefit they're getting now with this debacle is that they are not going to have to worry about not having games streamed over the next couple of months or weeks, because my understanding is that the deal was not going to be in place for at least I guess
for the away.
It wouldn't have been in place last week for the Dallas game. They may have had it in place for do we have a bye coming up this week?
We would play next week. It was either we play this week. No, we're off.
It was
next
Dallas.
Week.
Oh no, it was Houston. Yeah. It was Houston. Yeah, Houston and Dallas, right? Yeah. So it may not have been in place for the Dallas game, but it likely would have been in place thereafter. But maybe not. So they were looking at a month's worth of not having the game available for streaming or any options for basically people east of the mountains.
VPNs,
that's who we're essentially talking about here. Yeah. So we don't have to worry about that now, but my understanding is your hunch is likely to be correct. And again, I don't know how this coronavirus is going to affect those streaming announcements and options, because again, we don't know if we're going to have a season going forward. By all accounts, they hope to, but that is certainly far.
I would. It's a really interesting one because do you really think they could jam it in there? Like, I know the cost of Prime has gone up. Do you really not think it won't be an additional fee?
I've not heard anything about them charging anything extra. So it seems Yeah, that makes Prime pretty great deal, if that's the case. I feel I don't see how they would increase the cost over you purchasing a subscription to Amazon Prime. So
Well, and that's where like
I think you're
ESPN
fine on that
Plus right
score. I
now,
just
like it was
I
really
don't see
funny.
how.
It just renewed for me a few days
Yeah,
ago, and I was like, should I have done that? And then last night I saw that like
yeah.
all of the 30 for 30s are on there, and I was like, oh, I can watch something different. That is totally worth it.
There's plenty. Yeah, yeah. There's not plenty of content out there as far as new content, but they still do a good job with their ancillary programming, and there's still some live stuff that they do. Taylor Twellman has a new show too, so that'll be good. But yeah, it's not. I'm not
I
worried about
would
the five
agree with
dollars.
that. I
Essentially,
actually
is kind
now
of my thought. Yeah, maybe in
like
a couple
now
of
that
months
everything's
that
such a
may
shit
change in a
show, I
couple of
think I'm
months.
gonna cancel
However,
my ESPN Plus and just do the Hulu plus Disney plus ESPN Plus. It's actually a huge pain in the ass if you
uh,
already have Hulu to like combine them all. And now I'm like, fuck it, I'm just gonna
to
do it
combine them
because
really.
I want to watch Clone Wars. I have nothing else to do, so what the hell? Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Hmm.
Adam is just dropping like serious bomb questions on us in the chat. Before we break down the difference between the diamond formation versus the 3-5-2-1, let's talk about free kicks, set
Uh,
pieces,
uh,
whatever. It's, by the way, Joao Paulo, and he's going to have to fight. He's going to have to rock, paper, scissors with Nico, who now will be healthy when they come back to finally play. When and if we have a season. Uh, I,
hmm.
I don't
Yes.
know if I would
Let's not
let
get ahead of
Nico take
ourselves.
set pieces. Maybe like they take one side or the other. Like I would get that from a right.
Metzer talked about that just basically, because they're one's left-footed, one's predominantly right. So yeah, that is certainly something that I'm sure they'll look at once he gets back. Uh, again, assuming we have a season, and
Right.
that's a good option to have because it's not like either one of them is going to be in the penalty box taking receiving corners. Uh, so yeah, it's a very good option,
But
and
that's
I would
like a.
expect that
I'd rather have like
they
Joao
will exercise
Paulo with
that
like Nico as the short
going
option,
forward.
like right in front of him, just in case you felt like doing something a little bit
Oh yeah,
different.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a. I have to tell you, Nico back on the team, and now obviously having Goose and like other players are going to have time to get their rest and recovery in.
They should
It's
be
a little
as
more.
healthy as
It's
possible.
about as battle station as Sounders have been in a while. Like
Yeah, I mean, obviously for MLS Cup they were as healthy as they could have been, but the roster's different now, and they're gonna be very fun to watch. I think once they get that up and going,
so.
but it's just a question of
So we
when.
talked a little bit about dates earlier, and you had talked about the was it the CDC's suggestions for the timing, and that one of the other leagues
Yeah,
was going to pick up. And obviously, we saw that once one league in the country in the USA had picked up, others just like ratcheted straight down. We saw the same
yeah.
thing in the UK or England. Uh, like, do you think we see full season? Because if they start to remove all the extra stuff, like if we kill CCL and we kill U.S. Open Cup,
The Euros,
Euros,
Open
I would be
Cup,
shocked if they're not next year.
Copa.
Shocked at this point.
Yeah,
But
it make
like
yeah.
without Open Cup and without some of the international tournaments, I think there are some things. I think you're going to start to see the qualifiers come back and some of the other things, but Euros, I think that's gone. I could totally see MLS finishing the season because the season is, again, it was a month faster last year, and it's 3 days more
Yeah,
fast this year. So
yeah.
it's very easy, like on the easy side, for them to put 4 games back into the schedule. If you want to make it rough, they could definitely put 6, 7, 8 games back in the schedule.
Yeah, so what I think, let's see, we're March 16th now. Again, assuming that they go with the CDC guidelines, that puts them at mid-May. Let's say they start the season June 1st. That means each team has missed about 10 games or so. They could, in theory,
Right.
double game weeks. And if you're cutting out the Open Cup, Leagues Cup probably goes away. Campeones Cup goes away. The All-Star game, we'll see.
Well, it's Liga MX,
they
right?
probably
So...
keep the All-Star game just for marketing purposes. Yeah, so they're going to keep that at all costs. But if you get rid of all the multiple game competitions and the Campeones Cup, then there's, with double game weeks, there's enough time to squeeze in 10 games, I think. And they would certainly have to move the MLS Cup back. So maybe you go back to the original December, timeline. Now, how that would work with them having what's it called? Oh, the qualifiers, because there's 3 qualifying breaks from September to November. So depending on what the hell happens there, you may end up with the same problem that you had in past years where you had a long break in the middle of the playoffs. But again, that's probably a problem that you just have to deal with at that point. Because if you want to get a full season in, yeah.
If the men make the World Cup at all. So we'll just move on. It's not, but I'm, that's for the evening. Adam says not in Toronto again. I'm actually thinking we flip it the other way and make it so it's mandatory Toronto, neutral site MLS Cup.
Oh God. Well, I don't know if they would go neutral site, but that might be something they would consider, maybe, to go to a warm weather site for a game.
Everything was backed up. Like, there was the joke that, again, I was at the game.
Yeah.
It was Halloween night, and all of a sudden they had Mr. November, which you understand the Reggie Jackson reference, Mr. November, because the game went past midnight on Halloween at Yankee Stadium. It would not at all surprise me if they extended the season just from a timing perspective. It would be really easy for them to do. And I think, frankly, as we start to see what happens in the next week or two, unfortunately, this is going to be very fluid. And you could see like a 2-day period where you're like, oh, everything's flattened out. And then all of a sudden, Dallas has some huge uptick in cases or whatever it is. And it's just going to extend. Yeah. And I think we, unfortunately, have to tolerate it. And the speculation is not going to be productive. So... unfortunately, we are speculators on the internet, so we will probably do this as often as we possibly can.
Yeah, I think they'll probably, with all of the announcements, I think there's enough for us to talk about next week at least.
I mean, let's be clear.
And then we'll kind of just go from there.
We could probably talk about things every week for the rest of the year.
That is true. Maybe not having to do with soccer or anything like that.
People will be in the chat and they will ask us, really random questions like, what year was your favorite turf at CenturyLink Field? Anyway, I definitely did not pour the rest of this bottle of wine into my glass like a minute ago, so cool.
Well, I put in an order for a drink and it did not come, so I'm very disappointed. I'm going to have to go talk with the service around here. It's very, very shoddy.
We'll try and have better data moving forward. So if you're in the chat and you have any other questions, I don't know if we're going to break down formations tonight. I would like to do that, but not really. Sorry, Adam. Our bad, I guess.
You might get Dave Clark out here.
The fun part is, I now know how to have 4 of us, and I totally know how to do that.
Really?
And have 3 to 4 of us on a show. My internet usage will go up dramatically, exponentially, one might say. But I don't want to deal with that. So we can have guests on. I actually know how to have guests on permanently now. The Berliner is going to be like, "What the hell are you guys doing?"
This is a disaster, but I love it. So I'm absolutely here for it.
Season. Yes.
Oh, as a guest? I'm gonna say I'll just say shortened season is my that's what I put out on the Twitters. So that's the one I'll stick with. I mean, this, once we get past May 15th, then there's essentially no option but to shorten the season. So it'll be about getting as many games as a miracle things turn and they're ready to go by the 1st of May or something like that, then and you start, squeezing in some extra midweek, without the Euro.
So that's if you were betting. So if we were predicting right now, like in a normal week, you're calling shortened season.
They've got those June that they could, in theory.
I'll take that. I think I agree. Part of it is because not that MLS gives a fuck about the Supporter Shield.
You no longer have that. You can
playing every team in the league. So Nicholas, if you're still here, double asterisk. You were already not getting a full Supporter Shield because you weren't playing it. Everybody, excuse me. I think that's probably the play, and I think it will be travel driven. Or like how they chunk up if the breaks come back. If all of the breaks get eradicated, I think that maybe changes the prediction. But I think they're not going to kill every tournament, every qualifier, everything, especially
all the qualifiers.
Especially the ones that are a little bit later in the season. I think you're going to see teams. Frankly, when they make their schedules, if you know anything about this, and I think, Mickey, you do, and we've probably talked about this on the show, is teams get like vetoes. So it's like vetoing jury people. I can't think of the word. John Grisham would be super pissed at me for not remembering this. But like teams get to veto essentially when certain matches take place or move them. And a lot of times they'll just negotiate and move them around. But when you see like a bad fixture, that's typically because the team moved all the other ones that they absolutely didn't want. Thanks, Jesse. Good call. I do expect to see something like that. But yeah, I don't know. Oh my God, Hope, this is going to take us so long. If we were to go through assigning a wine to each player, I'm going to say...
See, I have so little knowledge of wines that I would be entirely useless in that exercise. Now, you obviously are a connoisseur, I would say. So
I am that person, sorry.
See, here we go.
I'm going to say that Nico Ladero is a barnyardy Southern Rhone. And that's all I'm going to go with. And it's because they are dirty. They are dirty. And they smell dirty. And they're fucking amazing. So that's what I'm going with. And we'll we may have enough time to do one of these each week. I'm going to make this a segment. I'm going to come up with graphics. I don't have Adam. But I have a lot of time on my hands. So I can have like, which Sounders player is which wine? That's both. Which White Claw is your favorite Sounders player? By the way, Mango White Claw is trash. You drank one earlier.
And this thing has been in the back of the fridge for many a month, likely a year.
Pajamas you're wearing to tonight's show.
It was not very good.
Niki does have pants on, just FYI.
I think
we negotiated that you had to wear pants to SonarFeed, and it was really because one of us was going to stand up and like run the other way at some point, and we knew it would end poorly. So, oh my God, if we had Brad on to do I'm not going to say that. I'm just saying, if we had Brad on to have a discussion about manscaping, we could probably spend like a lot of time on that.
I could use it, yes. Well, I think now with this new setup you've got, I mean, I feel like there is a couple of sounders. Yeah, there's on this broadcast.
Literally
I mean,
nothing,
what else are they
by
doing
the way.
right now?
Shots?
Yeah.
Good question. I am not shooting anything that's currently in front of me. That's
Again, my tequila order was ignored
wow,
by
Megan with
the staff
the
here, so
public
I'm
demanded.
gonna have to talk with them.
That's a good use of parentheses. By the way, I don't know if you can read this, but my tea-jar, tea on fleek, which is very awkward, and it costs a lot of money in Hawaii because everything costs a lot of money in Hawaii. I miss Hawaii. Bad, yeah. The staff is terrible.
Yes, the staff is bad. I agree. Yeah.
I'm gonna bang on my wall and ask.
I will definitely be leaving a Yelp review.
Good. The upstairs one, if you follow me on the internet, is terrible. Yeah. Which part is incredibly awkward?
Not so
the
much.
Entire show.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even sure which part you're talking about, Hope. Like there are so many things about today that are incredibly awkward. So it was probably about your pajamas. All right, so it is on food.
Yeah, just rest assured I'm wearing
it up. It's a food truck. Whatever. Just because I bought two doesn't mean I went down that rabbit hole. All right, so let's make predictions. By next show, will we know anything new about MLS postponements?
Yes, I will say that I'm fairly confident we will have an update of some significance regarding the immediate future for the season. I don't know if it'll be tomorrow, but I would definitely say this week. Maybe they do a Friday night news dump if it's particularly bad news. But no, seriously, they're talking. They chatted with USL and NWSL today. NWSL is kind of in the best position because they weren't planning to start. Another,
That sounds like you have inside information. I mean, Adam, a 3 lower week suspension might actually be accurate.
We will workshop.
We could just let that ride.
On where MLS.
I'm going to agree with you. I think we will have a handle on at least like the predicted next steps, which is going to be like, we won't announce anything for 4 more weeks, like a pretty firm timeline there. Yeah. Next week, by the way, we have to figure out how to both do shots.
Oh, yes. I think that.
I did not.
I think we can
up
do.
On
I think we can do
alcohol beyond wine, which seems like a fail on my part. I have 756 cans of Spam and a whole lot of eggs, and I have no liquor other than wine, which seems like a fail. I do actually have a terrible bottle of White Zinfandel that I'm never drinking, but it's.
Well, the good thing, the good thing about having a roommate who is in the service industry is that he brought home all sorts of delicious drinks. Unfortunately, now all the bars are now closed, so we still have a good supply. So I think we'll be all right for the next couple of weeks here.
I mean, cook with the White Zin is a good call. I, by the way, have not been amassing the Spam recently. I buy it like every other week.
Well, it does have a half-life of about forever. 300 years.
It's not going away anytime soon. Is that what the prediction is? Oh God, that's scary. Carrie, if you
all that's going to be left.
I have all of it. So when you come downtown next time, I don't know if that's going to be a thing, but cool. Do you have cider and rosé? Do you have a
Oh,
kegerator?
are you kidding me?
So
No, we
total
discussed
errata.
getting
I
one
have
of
a
those
friend that
actually,
lives
but
on the
we have
Upper East
not
Side
as
in
of
Manhattan,
yet.
and he just moved there. And he posted a photo on his Instagram of a BMW M3 with ski racks, and in the ski rack they had a keg, and not like a pony, but like a keg. And they had just like gone
Yeah,
to
wow.
brunch with their keg, and those people were posting up for a minute. They were like, we're not going anywhere for a hot minute.
I mean, a keg with a kegerator does make a lot of sense. That's going to keep
It's very
you,
true. Like, people don't
in
grasp
beer for
how much
a
beer is
reasonable amount
actually
of
in a
time.
keg. Yeah, it is a lot. All right, well, it's way past 9.
It's a lot.
It's past no one's bedtime because none of us have to do anything. I don't know.
Yeah,
To people who actually have
do
to go
anything.
into the office or
Yeah,
to the grocery or to wherever tomorrow or drive a bus or whatever it is, shouts to y'all because you're actually keeping us mobile and functioning in Seattle. And I have to tell you, if transit or grocery stores or whatever like shut down, we would see some crazy shit
yeah.
that I'm not really sure what to talk about.
We want to
Maybe
say.
let's save that for like 3 to 4
Yeah.
weeks from now. Um,
Yeah,
Hope
let's hope
asked,
we don't
what's
get to
the
that point.
post-COVID currency of choice? By the way, so I have a bin. It's about 6 feet from me.
Well,
It's
pretty
toilet
obviously
paper.
toilet paper.
Did you see that Reddit post,
Yeah,
by the way, of like,
obviously.
this is my favorite Lego set? And it's just people holding the white heads, like the Lego people heads, but with no stickers on them. And they look like toilet paper. And they were all lined up outside of a fake store. And they were like, this is my Seattle jam. Um, so I
Yeah,
have
this
some
is where we
I have
are
a
already,
bin
and it's
of like
already only
foreign
been like 2
currency
weeks.
from like your last day on travel. This isn't enough to buy a beer at the airport, but I'm gonna keep it. I have Guatemalan money and Honduran money, and it is literal thousands of the local currency. Those are not my favorite choice right now. At the moment, it's probably still euro because it's somehow still trading above a lot of other things in the world. So I'm sticking to that.
Oh, we'll see how that
Yeah,
goes tomorrow.
give it 24 hours. Um, wait, Carrie's got to go to work. Oh, I'm sorry. You're working at home at 8:30. Welcome to the rest of us.
Yes.
Anyway,
Enjoy
thanks
while you
everybody
can.
for working. Thanks for not killing all of us, I guess. Is that what we're going
Yeah,
with?
thanks for the lack of riots are good.
Let's be clear. We will definitely have a show next week because we'll all be just like, I shaved today because my
As long as the
beard would have
internet
been
is
this
still
long had I not
functioning.
shaved today. So we will definitely have a show next week. I have no idea about the production values. It may be like
Maybe we'll try to get
I
a hard
might
line.
plug in and I'll do it from my balcony and listen to people like screaming in the alleyways. Yeah. It'll be cool. So thanks to all of y'all for being here. Berliner, sorry we're not there. We'll be back as soon as we can. Washington, stay home. Don't die, everybody. Wash your hands. See you soon.